Hello and thank you so much for tuning into FunAhead TV. This week's episode, it's out with the old and in with the new for the exhaust on my 987.1 Porsche Cayman S. Hello there and thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of FunAhead TV. This is the second episode of a two-part series about improvements that I'm making to my Porsche Cayman over the winter. My basic intent with these improvements is to essentially make the car a more track-focused, sharpened vehicle. The first episode, which you can watch if you click the link right here, is about installing racing brake pads to the car to just overall sharpen the braking performance of the car. The second episode, today's episode, is about improvements I'm making to the exhaust. This is not so much a performance-based improvement, but more an overall visceral, good sounding improvement, because who doesn't love a good sounding exhaust and a good sounding flat six at that. So with that teeny tiny intro, let's get right into it and do the thing. Okay, now after months of deliberation, I decided to go with the Borla S-Type exhaust. My intent was not to make the car super loud, but my plan was simply to change the catback portion of the exhaust. I'll keep the stock headers in the main catalytic converters. This way I can keep a lot of the sound down while still gaining a very throaty exhaust note, hopefully at least. And from what I could tell through my research, the Borla exhaust seemed to provide a nice middle ground between the stock exhaust noise and straight piping. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but I do actually like the stock exhaust note of the Porsche Cayman. As I said in my last video, I try my best to respect the car the way the engineers designed it, and in my opinion, it does have a good sound when you're deep into the gas. Think I'm wrong? Actually, the audio clip from my FunAhead TV channel intro at the beginning of all my videos is a recorded sound of the stock exhaust note of this car. That being said, I have always felt that this car is slightly too quiet. Of course, there will be some small amount of horsepower gain due to the lessened back pressure in the exhaust. The second stage catalyst will be no more, and the volume of the exhaust tubing will be less. Plus, the tube routings are more efficient for the flow. But I expect the difference will be basically unnoticeable. So what am I doing this for then? Well, I'm doing this mainly for sound improvement. So given that it's all for sound improvement, I have devised a series of tests to be able to subjectively compare the stock exhaust to the Borla aftermarket exhaust in all of the areas that you want your exhaust to sound badass. In a tunnel, for example. But more on that later. First, let's talk about the physical differences between these two exhausts. Alright, now that we have it out, let's take a quick sec to admire this sweet puppy. So here's the stock exhaust. As you can see, comes up and over the CV shafts, which go through this area right here. Got some not so straight bends, pretty small diameter pipe into the second stage catalysts, which are right here, then into this big resonator muffler chamber on either side. There's a crossover tube up top, I believe it's for sound, so you can have some pass through, have some good like resonation between the two chambers. And then where the exhaust actually exits down here, it converges from both sides and then must go into this singular tube in the middle. This alone, I'm sure, is quite restrictive. You'll see on the Borla that does not exist. There are two distinct tubes that come out from either side and go into the tips. Alright, now let's do a quick overview the same way we did with the stock exhaust. So you can see, here's the beginning of the cat back. The stage 1 cats are right here. Sorry, Wiley is sniffing my microphone. Come up and over the CV shafts again. Notice the bends. They are much straighter and less restrictive. Also, bigger diameter pipe. This splits into two pipes here, which go into these resonators, and then hook and go straight into these beautiful tips. I opted for the 4-inch tips. They do this system in 3.5 and 4-inch tips. I did 4-inch because, this is America. Bigger's better, right? I don't know. I honestly just figured it would look a little bit cooler, so I went with that. I could be wrong. We're going to find out. Also, like I said, here are the pipes that lead into the tip. So each bank does have its own individual pipe instead of having just like the stock exhaust system had a converging pipe from both sides. into a singular tube. So much less restrictive there, much less restrictive up over the CV shafts, and a lot less muffling. So we'll see. Hopefully it'll be a sweet sounding system.
Yes. So I gotta say, I'm super pleasantly surprised to find out that this exhaust isn't actually all that loud. My intent was to find an exhaust that's kind of right in the middle between the very quiet stock system and just straight piping the car. So I think the mixture between this catback and then keeping the stock headers really net exactly what I was looking for. I'm super pleasantly surprised. And as you can subjectively see, during each of the test modes, this exhaust clearly outperforms the stock. But that being said, I am quite curious to hear your opinions, so please let me know in the comments below if you think this exhaust system was worth it, or if you think I should have just stayed with stock. that, I hope you learned something, and thank you so much for tuning in to FunAhead TV.